Bonjour à tous, bienvenue à cette conversation avec Piotr Dumala qui se tient dans le cadre de cette 20e édition du Festival Regard. Piotr Dumala était donc l'invité du festival en raison de sa participation au jury international et aussi parce que le festival lui rend cette année hommage. Dumala est né, donc est cinéaste d'animation polonais, il est né en 1956 à Varsovie. C'est un grand cinéaste. Son œuvre est abondante, un peu plus d'une dizaine de courts-métrages d'animation dont la durée varie entre 3 et 29 minutes, de même que 2 longs-métrages de prise de vue réelle. Il a également tourné de nombreux films de commande. Son œuvre est très, très dense. Ses films sont à la fois somptueux et graves. Si vous avez assisté hier soir à la projection, vous avez vu donc le sens de la plastique et de la mise en scène qui caractérise le travail du cinéaste. Parfois, ces films aussi peuvent être d'un humour très, très étonnant. On le verra d'ailleurs tout à l'heure. Et les films de Dumala, jusqu'à son plus récent, ont été récompensés à travers le monde de nombreux prix dans les festivals les plus importants, que ce soit Annecy, que ce soit Zagreb, Hiroshima, Espinho, Ottawa, Montréal, au sommet du cinéma d'animation, où son court-métrage Hippopotamie a remporté le Grand Prix en 2014. De même qu'ici, l'année dernière, à Saguenay, donc Hippopotamie, prix du meilleur court-métrage d'animation. Et Dumala est aussi enseignant. Alors donc, nous aurons une discussion avec ce grand artiste tout au long des prochaines minutes. Piotr, I just said very nice things about you. I hope that you understand.
My French is a little bit,
okay.
So I could get some.
Okay, so welcome in Saguenay, and it's very great to have you here. Piotr, I would like to go at the beginnings of your career. I just mentioned that you were born in 1957. 1956. And
7 is better.
well, okay, give or take a year. And at the beginning, so you wanted to study art preservation?
Yes.
And then you switched to animation,
Yes.
which is a little bit strange. What happened between art preservation and animation?
In fact, it was first primary. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I was in the age of my daughter even, and after that, I switched into the preservation because I was not sure enough to be able to pass the exam to the Academy of Fine Arts, the graphic department, or painting department. That's why I choose preservation as a little bit less high level in art.
Yeah, okay, but it's important.
But it was very good choice anyway. It changed my life because I started to treat art like a something you can investigate. You can really touch the method, not only artistic way, but also kind of physical way, more material way, substantial.
We have to say that actually it was stone sculpture preservation that attracted you. Yeah.
We had geology, archaeology too, art, history of art, but very specific, very deep. We had microbiology, we had chemistry. So there were subjects I never imagined I could study, and I was good in it.
You were a good student.
I was the best chemical
so
in the class.
So why did you switch to animation then?
No, because I wanted to make animation since I was born.
Animation?
Animation, animation, yes. When I started to see films in TV, black and white, small screen like that, with a huge box of TV set, and I saw first films, animated films, or in the cinema. I immediately understood that this is something I would like to jump in and stay there for the rest of my life. So in fact I did it.
What attracted you in animation especially? Was it like the technique or the graphics or humor or?
I think this is a sense of be somewhere in the parallel life. parallel world, and where there is no borders, there is no rules. The only thing is your imagination. You are free, and you are close to your inner world. Not so realistic. It's never been realistic so much. So these chemistry lessons were very good to put some roots, make some roots. But still, I did. I worked as an. I tried to write. I wrote a lot of things. I wrote poems in a serious way, in a funny way, thousands of pages. Maybe I was not good enough. Anyway, I did it all my life, and I still write a lot. I love to write. So my primary, first the deepest meaning, what is art, is writing. Maybe music, but I'm not a musician. I love music, but it's not. I'm not doing it. But writing is my biggest passion, and reading and writing. So I do films like I am writing films, and of course films are also like a visual language. Yes, so it's like a language without words. So this is kind of writing without words, and that's why I started to be very close to the dream language, which is like our inner ability to be an artist for everyone, because we are all dreaming, and our dreams sometimes are great, are better than everything else, in the artistic sense. So that's why I was very much inspired by dreams all my life, and by psychology, by myth, by fairy tales. I think this is the most deep language of human beings, and completely universal for all people. That's why in most of my films there is no dialogues, no comments. This is, everything is just based on the visual language, the image, the how the character looks like, how the scenography works, and how the body language works.
Poland has a very important animation tradition. There are masters of Polish animation. Let's take, for instance, Jan Lenica, Stechura, Schabenbeck, etc. So, as a young animator, as a young artist, was it easy for you to find your real personality in such a context of very important and influential animation artists?
Yes and no, because it was not so easy to see these films, to watch them.
Really, in Poland?
Yeah. Animation was never popular. Artistic animation. The animation in TV was for children, and we had some programs of short films in TV. It was very important for me. It was not only animation. It was called the Cinema of Short Films, the program, and run by the very interesting man, film critic Bolesław Michałek. And I just learned what is film from TV, from these programs. And I heard about some names, famous animators, because we had a magazine called Anima Film. It was a magazine of ASIFA, International ASIFA. For 2 years it was made in Poland. Marcin Giżycki was the chief of it.
ASIFA, I just want to mention, ASIFA is the Association Internationale du Film d'Animation, so a very important international association of animators and animation artists.
So I read this magazine, and I read about some great artists like Raoul Servet, Alexander Alexeyev, Jerzy Kucia, Witold Giersz, Czekała from Poland, Kijowicz, and I dreamed, Yuri Norstein, I dreamed about meeting them, to be there, to touch them, to see their films, and everything was in my imagination. I had no chance to see this, not even Polish, of course, not international, but even not Polish. So it was very unique to know something more than just the names.
But what did you learn exactly at school? Technique? Because you're telling a lot about the importance of dreams in your work, but you cannot. I mean, in school they won't teach you how to dream.
Of course, how to draw dreams.
So what did you learn at school? Technique, craftsmanship, or was it necessary at some point to study animation?
I studied animation because I didn't know how to animate, how to make movement. So I learned this step by step, but actually it was a lot about based on my intuition. In fact, I was not so much taught like a regular filmmaker, animation filmmaker. I didn't get any courses. So in fact, I was self-made animator. So my advices from my teacher was rather about the dramaturgy and choosing the general the technique or the style. And so first the film I did in a cutout, because Shehura was a cutout director. He used cutouts, and he pushes me to do this also. But very early I started to think that I have to find something which is my own language. That's why one day it happened. By completely coincident, I invented something new or discovered something which is called I call it plaster animation. So drawings are scratched on the surface of the plaster covered with the black paint.
Okay, we will talk about this technique that you invented, but first I would propose that we watch one of your early films. I selected it because it's a good film. It's a slapstick comedy with a lot of black humor in it, but I think it's also you. It's your it's your thoughts and it's your world. So the title is Nervous Life of Cosmos. It was made in 1986.
Yes.
It's a short film, so we will see it from the beginning till the end.
Okay.
And we'll be right back after.
In this film, I could express my love to the fairy tales.
Yeah,
It's a mixture of few.
Yeah, but this is, yeah, I wanted to ask you actually before talking about your other films made on plaster panels. It's a comedy, but it's also very dark. But you just mentioned that it's a fairy tale, but it's a parody or...
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The fairy tales are very cruel.
Uh-huh.
So especially Grimm Brothers fairy tales, or even old Polish legends, and most of fairy tales are about death, or about the cruelty.
Yeah.
And many characters are killed during the story because
Yeah.
it's not real killing; it's symbolical killing. That's why I like fairy tales. We read every evening with my daughter fairy tales.
He does?
Italian. They are very cruel, even more than Grimm Brothers fairy tales.
Italian fairy tales.
Italian by
Yes,
Italo
really.
Calvino.
Uh-huh.
He could put them together.
Yeah.
3 volumes.
Yeah. So you made this one. You made also Black Riding Hood and this series called The Professor that we saw yesterday. What is the audience for these films? Are there films for kids or
No, but
No.
you.
okay. For everyone?
Yeah, it is for festivals only.
Okay.
In fact, the animation for adults doesn't exist in the regular distribution. Yes, in the TV, if they show it, it's shown in the middle of night for some people who don't sleep or who don't work, or I don't know for whom. So animation is mostly made for some enthusiastic of this discipline who come to the festival and watch the films in these special screenings. Of course, I had a lot of special meetings with public, showing of only my films, some places all over the world.
Yeah.
But this is always very specific audience who likes this kind of films and who knows that this kind of films exist.
So I think it's the time now to talk about this technique that made you famous. It's animation on plaster panels, and I think that it's your not your secret, but your respected animator because of your films, sure, but also because of this very special technique. Can you describe a little bit what is this technique?
When I did animation, my first films, I think it was the time when every animator could invent his or her own technique, because there was no computer which unified everybody. The animators in that time use some just pencil on the paper or painting on the cell, like Disney old films, or they invented their own techniques, like it could be also cutout, or it could be puppet animation, which existed also from the early time of animation, from Starevich. But after all, some animators started to invent their own techniques. I think McLaren was one of them. Yes,
McLaren was famous for that.
He was a big inventor. He was a great inventor. He was mixing everything with everything, and it worked. And especially he also with soundtrack. Yes, you know about it. But I knew some films by great animators like Caroline Leaf, who was also in Canada, and she made some beautiful films like Metamorphosis of Mr. Zamza and The Street, which I loved really. And she also inspired me that animated film could be not only for children, not only like an impression artistic and no one knows what is going on, or just just for beauty. I mean, just only aesthetical, which is of course great. But in that time, my main interest was to tell stories which are not only funny, which are not like even like this film. It was just like to relieve after some other film, which was much heavier. But my great idea was to make serious psychological animated film. So my first film like that was Gentle, the film based on Dostoevsky's short story, and where there were two characters, main characters, and some others. I cut them out, and I kept only these two old men and very young lady, and they were like a couple living together, and it was a conflict between them. I didn't use words, I didn't use comments. It was only language of film, only of image. And it was my first step into serious animation.
And it was made with this plaster.
And it was made. It was my second film on the plaster, but first film which I really knew what does it mean, because I started some morphings, transformations of the old space or characters into something else, like the face become a clock, or the clock become a yard with empty yard with a figure of a man, and then it comes back into the face of the lady. I remember people were really shocked watching it, because maybe I was the first who did it. I don't know anybody who did it before. I remember that just after that appeared a video clip made in the computer when Michael Jackson transformed in some faces, or I'd never seen it, but some people said, "Oh, it's like Michael Jackson." I said, "Yes, but I was first." Because it was true. It was true. Yes.
But so technically, just to give us an idea, so you have this panel of plaster.
This is a panel of plaster, thin like that, maybe 1 inch, and this is hard because it's made on the glass, so it's very slight. And then I take a glue, it's called pearl glue, and make it with water and hot water and paint it over to make it hard. When it's dry, it's harder. Then I take a sandpaper, scratch, then paint over with the black or dark brown, like in this film, Gentle. And then I take a tool like a scalpel or razor or needle and scratch drawing. The drawing is ready, make a picture. After this, I have to paint it over and make another drawing just next to the previous one. And it goes like that. When the guy is walking, I make step by step his walk, and all drawings are out. So this is called destructive by somebody, because really I had to destroy my own works.
So this is why you
get the movement.
So this is why you studied art preservation, to invent later on destructive animation. Great, fantastic.
Yes. Everything is connected.
We will see a clip of Gentle in a few minutes, but there's something striking in these films is they resemble paintings in movement. But they are also animation. I mean, they're not just paintings that move, they are animated films, sure. But I was wondering if, was it a consequence of trying to find a way to bring paintings in film? I don't know if my question is clear.
Yeah, what is the connection between this? Yeah, for me, the old painters, I was a big admirator of paintings, of Dutch paintings, small masters, or still life masters, or scenes in the interior. You know, I don't know how it's called in English, but there were people like Vermeer or other painters from this time, like Ruysdael and Rembrandt. They were like filmmakers, Caravaggio, and after them many years after Edvard Munch from Norway.
You mean you
Edvard
said-
Munch.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you said they were filmmakers?
No, they were almost like filmmakers,
Filmmakers,
because
okay.
the film was not yet, but their way of thinking was very film. They made dramaturgy on their paintings. They were painters of action. They were painters of, like Munch was painter not in action, was more like to show us the feelings of people, like jealousy, for instance, yes, or the separation of people, how to show separation, how to show jealousy. And he found some angles of camera to show the face of the man in the first plan and men and woman together, and his face is watching us.
Yeah.
And we see in his eyes that he's jealous, that he's suffering. So for me, it was like a great scenes from the film. I just thought, okay, I have to make them alive. Why not? So my biggest masters, my teachers of animation, of film doing, they were painters. And in the film Crime and Punishment, based on the novel by Dostoevsky, I had all Rembrandts were around me, and I looked how he painted the light on the face, and the light in the eyes, and all this I put into my film because it was my language. So for me, animation was like a moving painting, telling its stories, because they wanted to show stories, but the film was not invented yet. So all their paintings were like a still frame from the film. I found a painting, it was like that.
Okay.
From the Bible, for instance, scenes.
Yeah. I think we should see a clip of Gentle or Łagodna now, just to get a better, clearer idea
to know what I'm talking
of
about.
the aesthetic and the technique. Unfortunately, we got digitized copies of the original 35mm print, so remember that it's not the quality of film print. But so here's a 4-minute clip of Gentle from a Dostoevsky novel.
Munch's sister. The spider is inspired by Odilon Redon drawing.
Yeah.
This is Munch wedding.
It's a panorama of the history of arts.
And also the table at my uncle's house. This is Vermeer, the table. Rembrandt.
I don't know if you heard, but Piotr was telling me about all the references, nearly frame by frame, and all the famous painters were mentioned graphically
quoted
throughout the film.
Yeah.
I would like to talk to you about dreams. You mentioned that at the beginning. You believe that animated films are like dreams. And we saw in gentle metamorphosis of things changing and other things. How do we script a dream? How do you create this dreamy atmosphere? Because once, I think it's Alfred Hitchcock, he said, someone I know was dreaming and he thought that it was like a great plot for a film, so he woke up, he wrote down his dream, he said, wow, this is fantastic. He went back to sleep, and when he woke up in the morning, he saw the note that it made no sense.
Okay.
So how can you script a dream?
I believe that we are still dreaming, and it's just a question to find a key to be able to dream when you are not sleeping. And so I believe the art is kind of dreaming, because we have to come into different worlds to be open for everything, to be not limited with rational thinking. Rational thinking is that this is the brush, or this is the scalpel, this is the plaster or canvas, and I know how to do it. But the rest should be just completely free, without any rules, to be open. Of course, the rules are necessary also to put them all things together.
Yeah, yes? You have to have a structure.
It must be kind of a structure, or it must be. But the basic thing is, for me, is always liquid, and I have to dream writing, or dream painting, or scratching, or imagining what is the story about. So, in fact, you mentioned Hitchcock. I had the dreams for many years, which were exactly to be write down, and they were perfect.
Really?
As stories.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I wrote a book, a collection of short stories, and half of them were based on dreams. And it was completely logical stories. They were logical, but in the dream logic. So some things were completely crazy, but they were able to be wrote down as the stories, with everything, with the style of language even. I had dreams I saw a film in the cinema, and I am amazed by this film, and I think, oh God, this is film by Szczechura, my teacher. Why it's not mine? And then I woke up, no, it's mine, because it was my dream. Szczechura never did this film. So there I sit and draw down the story. And so few films I did like that. The dream was like a base for this. And still it happens that the dream can be the first seed to grow, to make a film. For instance, there is a film, Freedom of Leg. It was shown yesterday.
Yeah.
And there is a scene when the leg is just escaping and the handicapped people are trying to get her. This scene, I had a dream. I saw this leg jumping and these people trying to get her. Like a very logical story, and with even some joke is in it, yes. But it was just one scene. So my method was that if it was not a dream story as a storyline, just one phrase, one frame, or one sequence, then I try to imagine what could happen before to come to the moment when the leg is escaping. What happened to her? Where from is she? Who was the guy without leg now? So I invented all this story about a man who just separated into pieces and one leg just escaped. And then some guys who didn't have legs, they found her and tried to get her, the leg. And he saw this from the window and started to follow also, to be, no, it's my leg, go away. And no one catch her. So the leg jumped into the roof and fly away, got wings, because the shape of the leg is perfect for the bird, with this part like a head, and just leg, does wings, and is a new genre of bird.
But if you work with if you try to obtain the logic of dreams, how do you manage to have a film that has a good runtime, that is not too long, that has rhythm? Do you do, for instance, some editing at the end?
Of course.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, the editing is a very important part. Yes,
some animators also find their images so beautiful that they do not want to remove them. But you do editing, so.
I do editing before I do film.
Okay.
Because I do storyboard. Yes, the storyboard is just registration of my thoughts. So if I have first my thoughts, then I draw them, and then I see if it works together. If it works, I can make a film. Because in animation, it's so time-consuming work that if you don't have a particular plan, very strict plan, you just lose your time. Yes. You can't make okay, let's take 7 times the same, like in live action. No, you just must be just one good. So in this technique, the scratching, I had no second camera to see what I'm doing or to see it like video, yes. I saw the result of my scratching after 2 months sometimes. Yeah. It was just half minute of work in 2 months. Yes. Yeah. So it was really a big risk. That must be good. Otherwise, I have to repeat it. So this pressure was really good for the filmmaker, for me as a filmmaker, because I was maximally concentrated and to not make any mistake. If I was not sure, did I make a picture or not? Because somebody called me or come to me, hi, how are you? So, okay, good. Oh, did I make a picture or not? So I did 2 times. Yeah. Just in case.
Yeah. I would like to ask you something about, because maybe it's contradictory with the idea of dreams, adaptations. You adapted Kafka, you adapted Dostoevsky twice, so you did Gentle and you did Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment was not in your retrospective last evening because it's a long film. It's like nearly 30 minutes. Yeah. But also, I know that the original novel has maybe, I don't know, 300 pages or...
even more, I think.
Yeah, even
about
more.
400.
So how can you squeeze so many pages in 30 minutes, even though 30 minutes is a long runtime for an animation film? So why this temptation to desire to adapt classic novels of literature?
This is like you love somebody, you want to give this person something. So this was my love to Dostoevsky in that time. I just wanted to share my love with people. Of course, it's not possible. Was not possible to make all film. Actually, it's not my favorite film of mine. Crime and Punishment, I think, is the kind of disaster. Was not what I really expected to do. Anyway, I dared to try. I was thinking about it 17 years to start it. And maybe it was a mistake that I didn't start earlier, because I had a very good script idea for the film before I started make films. I did a big comics, 300 drawings about crime and punishment. And this comics was much better than the final film, which was too normal, was not crazy enough. The comics was completely crazy. I was about 20 years old and really had good ideas, much better, but I didn't have any skills on an animator. I didn't know I would make films in the future. I dreamed about it, but I was still a conservator of art. And so this comics was like I opened my eyes to see how I can imagine some love to the book on pictures. And my big inspiration was Italian writer and comics designer Dino Buzzati, who made a film, who made a comics based on Orfeo and Euridice. So I dared to make a comics as something serious, because comics was also just for fun. Yes. So I tried to make a psychological and mysterious comics, mystical comics almost. And this comics was the first attempt to use a kind of popular method to show something very serious. And animated film was the same. Anyway, I believe that animation has some special ability to squeeze things, like in the dream, that one moment in the dream when you know everything. It happens also when we are not dreaming. Suddenly we get a flash that we understand something. Everything is clear for a moment, yes? It's like find the result in mathematics maybe, or some physical experiments, yes? I think it's common for everybody who invents something. Yeah? My father was inventor of mechanisms, so I am kind of similar to him, but I don't use mechanism, I use my drawings of films, yes? So there is a moment when we can zoom many things in one squeeze frame, and animation is very much about it, because this is this film, this film dream language, with everything is possible in 1 second you can get it. You mentioned Hitchcock. Hitchcock was interviewed by Truffaut. It was this long book, huge interview, and Truffaut asked Hitchcock, why you never did Crime and Punishment, this perfect story, why you like crime stories, why you never made this? He said, oh no, it's impossible. The book is so long, the film must be 8 hours. And I would never dare to do it. And the book is completely complex, is completely perfect. So the film will be just following the perfect book. It would never be good. I dared to do it. Because for me, maybe because of that, I also was not successful as much as I wanted. But anyway, I dared to do it because animation is not a real film. I mean, this is the special kind of film, which I could show what is in imagination. They were not real characters, they were imagined characters. Like in the book, they are not substantial. They are only created. When you read, we imagine how they look like. It's not drawn, it's not filmed. So in animation, you can imagine how they look like, but not using real people, using your dream people. Yes, that's why I try to do it. Yeah, and the rest of my films are in the same way.
Yeah, Franz Kafka is also an adaptation of 3 novels.
No, this film is based on diaries of him. Diaries. Yes, and in fact, I never dared to show Kafka's novels or short stories. I thought he was really interested character as a real man, who was like in the border, in my imagination. He lived like in a border between reality and fantasy, because he was so different in his books than in his life. completely opposite person. And he became one of the greatest authors of 20th century during the life being nobody. So this contrast, like Van Gogh, he's the example of somebody who is like a Cinderella. Yes, he's no one and can be everybody, can be the genius, he's genius inside. That's why Kafka as a person was much more interested for me, and I tried to squeeze his life. He lived 41 years. When he died, he was 41, and the film is 16 minutes only. I think this was much more successful because I touched him spiritually. It was really Kafka.
Yeah.
My dream was to make Kafka alive.
Yeah, you're right.
He was never filmed. He was photographed sometimes, even as a boy, but he was never filmed. And he hated film, as I knew about him. But anyway, he didn't say anything about animation, so I hope he would like this.
We're going to see a clip of Kafka, and after we will talk about the present.
Okay.
Okay? Piotr, in the years 2000, you decided to work with actors. You decided to go outside of the animation studio and to meet actors. So you did a feature called The Forest. Why suddenly did you decide to do a feature with actors?
It was not so suddenly. I was thinking about making live action for a long time. Actually, this film contains some animated sequences, not many.
Yeah.
It's 7 minutes altogether. The film is over 70. But I had a feeling I need to meet real people. It was like a kind of cage I was in, put by myself into really to the basement, looking like a cage without window, just camera and lamps and me with my film, my imagination. So I wanted to open the window and get some real light, real forest, real people, and it was a great adventure for me. And after that, I started to feel I want to make a next film. And
you got tired of animation, or you got tired of animation?
I was a kind of tired or kind of limited. I wanted to try different taste, and live action gave me this taste. My first live action, The Forest, was almost no dialogues, so it was almost like animation. These characters had no names. We didn't know about them, nothing, like in the animated films. We didn't see the rest of the frame. We saw just the room or the part of the forest. We didn't know where is this forest, what country, what language they speak. It was very much like drawing, black and white. And the next film I made, just finished last year, is called Ederly. This is the word which doesn't exist. It doesn't mean anything. But in the film it means the name of this small village. When there is a man who comes to the village and he is found as someone else. And it started the chain of adventures in this small society. And this also like animation, because in this film there is no names, there is no family names. They are like a servant, landlord, brother, mother, priest. They have no names. So this is like sometimes like in the 19th century theater, like Ibsen or Strindberg, you know, there are people without names. They're just their rules were important.
We will see images of elderly, but quickly I just want to ask you, just want to go back rapidly on hippopotami, because so the film is your most recent short one. First of all, there's an important shift in your career, because it's not plaster animation on plaster panel, it's 2D animation. So you decided to abandon animation on plaster panels, or?
It was too difficult to make it on plaster. I would love to make it on plaster. It would be much better, I'm sure, graphically.
Okay. And also you are surely aware that the film got a lot of reactions everywhere it was shown. And I saw many short films. The first time that I saw a film that got with so many debates on it. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about your perception of what is hippopotami, what is it about?
Just to describe the story, maybe, because what is about I really don't know. This is an experiment. Like you put one thing and another, and you are waiting what happens. Yes. So this is my expectation only. How it will work if I put animals' behavior into human beings' shape. And my question was, can people be same way cruel like hippopotamuses are cruel when they want to make sex? And this film is very much about the body, about sex, about life and death, not about love, not about thinking or it's not lyrical. Is very biological, I would say.
Yeah, but it's also a ballet.
Yeah, and from the other side, I wanted to make it ballet. It was not as much ballet as I wanted because of some technical reasons also, but anyway, it has some parts, ballet parts. I wanted to make it as a film which is like registration already of ballet, which people are sitting, watching the ballet. There are some actors, they do something, and suddenly they start to kill each other. And people sitting don't know, is it true or something happened? What's going on? So kind of provocation, but there is no blood, so it's not so cruel that it could be. It's not so realistic. So it's also like a dream language that somebody is killed, but we can't see why, because it was just hit by the piece of stone or is put into the water, but we don't believe completely that it's real. So it was my attempt as an artist to show something which was really difficult to watch.
Is elderly a Dumala film? Your new feature. I mean, it's like, is it your like themes and preoccupations and ideas and?
Absolutely, yes. This film is even the most me, because
Wow.
it's based.
What does it mean?
It's based on the dream I had as a teenager, and wrote down as a short story. Then I wrote the story again, a bit larger, with some new ideas already made when I'm not dreaming. After a few years, I wrote it again as a novel in episodes in the newspaper. So every week I had to write new with the drawing. And after 24 episodes, we stopped it. I mean, the magazine said maybe it's enough. I was in the middle, and in fact, I didn't know what to write more. And then during the editing of my first feature, The Forest, we spoke a lot with the editor, the girl who was editing the film, and I told her some ideas for my next films. And I told her that I have a short story I wrote when I was a teenager, and then I tried to write it again, and the title was Elderly. She said, wow, it's a good idea to make a feature. Try to do it. So when I finished The Forest, I did few animated films, but also started to write a script for this new feature. So this new feature is very different from everything I did, because it's a lot of dialogues, even too many maybe. It's very talkative film.
I understand that we're very, very, very lucky this morning, because we will have the chance to see 2 clips of this new film, and it's like a world premiere that we will have now.
In North America. It
in
was
North
shown
America.
one time in Latin America, in Argentina.
Okay. So maybe we will skip hippopotami. So the last 2 clips, please. Elderly, 1 and 2.
Elderly. Not elderly, but elderly.
Elderly.
Yeah.
No jak? Przyznajesz się wreszcie?
Tak. Tak, to ja. Jestem twoim bratem.
Alors, vous avez la chance d'avoir devant vous ce matin un des cinéastes d'animation les plus réputés au monde, M. Piotr Dumala, et vous avez la possibilité, la chance de pouvoir lui poser des questions, de faire des commentaires. Alors, vous pouvez, si vous vous exprimez, si vous posez votre question en français, je vais traduire, or you can ask a question in English also, as you wish. Alors, Francis.
Je vais poser la question en français. À propos de la technique d'animation sur plâtre, si j'ai bien compris, la plaque est environ 1 pouce d'épais, mais à force de gratter, est-ce qu'il pouvait passer au travers ou est-ce que ça pouvait créer des problèmes de focus? C'est-à-dire si au début, le focus est bon, mais au fur et à mesure que l'animation avance, ça creuse et puis ça crée des problèmes de...
Okay. Francis understood that the plaster panel is 1 inch thick. So his question is, when you scratch, he supposes that probably the panel gets thinner.
Mm-hmm.
So is there problem of focus, for instance, on the image because the panel gets thinner?
It doesn't get thinner too much. It's just very surface. It's just 1/10 of or 1 micron, because it's only the paint. So the paint is nothing. Yes. So I scratch just the surface. I don't come deep into this.
It's not like sculpting. Or,
no, it's not sculpting. No.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I'll try to ask my question in English. It's about yesterday, about your short presentation at the beginning of the screening. The thing that interests me is that you're one of those artists that have a signature, that have something to say during a very long period of time. And you were talking about the relation between if human can be animals and animal can be humanistic or something like that. And I was just wondering, from the short retrospective that has been shown yesterday, if your characters seem to be, that's my only impression, seem to be like only one line oriented, meaning that they give me the impression that they are unidimensional somehow, that you can provide them with one function to tell your story, and you move along with that. So, but from what I'm just seeing from the live action, they seem to be more full-bodied and more driven, more complete, more two-dimensional. So I was just wondering if during your animation period, if you have provided some specific function to reveal a certain aspect of human nature during that time. Okay. And I might have a second question afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Will you transfer? No, it's
no,
translated.
It's okay.
It's a lot of questions in one.
Yes.
In fact, yes. But coming to the end of your question, yes and no, because all animated characters are individuals. Also, they are not like in between animal and human being. They were very specified during the film, but this character could change suddenly into the animal if the story needs it. But in fact, I was searching for the kind of spiritual space inside of the character, even in Kafka. For me, Kafka was intellectual, somebody, and body. So I tried to find him as like a human animal, kind of, which doesn't use words, but shows his ideas, his feelings through his image and behavior. So in the film Kafka, he does something like the plate on the finger, or jumping in the end into the dog. He transformed into the dog. So some behaviors of him are like human, but in the very end, he becomes a dog, which is the end of the film. She cannot come back to be a human. So I know if it's the answer, because it's rather discussion than question.
You gave me some ideas. I think that you have skimmed a few answers of my question, but I know what you're heading at. But I think that your film is a bit more. It requires at least a second screening, so people could get into what you wanted to say. And yes, I was just dreaming about that your film had a psychological kind of feeling to it. And I thought, oh, is that possible? And you just mentioned that word this morning, so I thought, okay, I was not out of the plate. But maybe we could discuss shortly afterwards. Maybe it's And my second question is about music, the use of music and how you make it function from your very early work until now. You say that you're not into you love music, but I would like to hear you. What kind of I know about the function of music into a artistic work, but from you, I would like to hear from you. What kind of, let's say, a special application or some specific application that you have in mind into one? Is it also a character, or is it also like a subtle narrative, visual narrative to support the storytelling, or is it just a thematic leitmotif, so on? So I would like to hear from you on that, if possible. Thank you.
The music is always a problem. In my early films was less problem than now, because I didn't use words, I didn't use dialogue, so the music was to tell us more, to complete the story from the side of the emotions, feelings. I think music is feeling, and in the film, and it can change this. The same scene can be treated differently by the audience with different music. If you put funny music, you can treat something as a funny thing. With the same clip with the sad music can be sad. Depends what you want to get. You can get it really by music. So my first films until live action maybe, or even until Crime and Punishment, they were quite simple, and I used many of. I was focused on the visual language, and the story was shown like a pantomime. And in the end, when I put the music, it was just complete. Music was instead of sound effects even, and instead of dialogues. So it tells the story, complete, makes the story complete. When I started to use dialogue, the music changed this rule. And in fact, now I am not sure if the music is necessary for me or not. In my this film you saw these clips with live action. The composer is a very good one, Selma Moutal from Paris. He made this great music, but it's like a kind of just supporting some scenes, separated, some chosen scenes. But I'm not sure if it's really necessary to use music, because some parts of film, they don't need music at all. And in my first live action, I didn't use music at all. Only in the credits is the music. And so for me, music plays some special role, and now I don't feel that I know what role can play in my films.
Unfortunately, we have no time left.
Good.
Malheureusement, c'est tout le temps que nous avions. Many thanks, Piotr, for this discussion. It was a pleasure to discover your thoughts and ideas. Donc, merci infiniment à Piotr Dumala, donc de nous avoir présenter son travail, son processus créatif. Pour moi, c'est toujours passionnant de connaître donc les méthodes de travail des gens qui pratiquent l'animation. I wish you a pleasant time in Québec. Alors, je vous souhaite un très bon séjour au Québec. Merci de nous avoir écoutés et bonne fin de Festival Regard. Merci.
Merci.